Hello and welcome to my latest weekly video news from Madison's. Well, Zoopla has come out this week with their latest overall research into what's going on in the market. Always really interesting to see what the portals think, because they obviously are on the first kind of sign of what's going on in the market when people start to do searches, so they can analyse buyer inquiries, prices achieved, things like that. And they're supporting everything that we're finding at the moment, that the demand continues to be there. There continues to be the re-evaluation for home. Interestingly, far less people looking to buy outside the capital. That's obviously been a big phenomenon of the pandemic, as people realise they didn't need to live quite so close to where they work. So less people looking to buy outside the capital, but still buoyant in many areas. And probably the most interesting thing they commented on was about the mortgage rates and what is the rise on the mortgage rates having on the housing market. There's a really interesting graph that you can see on the chart now, and this is showing the majority of mortgaged home buyers in higher income bands. So what you can see there is those on the lower incomes, so that lowest 10%, that first column you can see, it's predominantly made of renters. Be that social and private. And that pink line bar then gets smaller as you go towards the highest income earners. And that dark sort of purpley navy blue band you can see on the bottom is those who are buying with a mortgage. So as you can see, there is a direct correlation between the amount that you earn and how much you will buy a property with a mortgage. And therefore, the mortgage rate rises, although they're squeezing and hurting a little bit, they're not massively impacting the housing market at the moment. And that's because on those lower incomes, your income will be more stretched and challenged in having to meet basic cost of living areas such as heating your house, powering your house, and buying food and petrol. And of course, those are the big areas. It's in most enormous inflationary growth recently. So those lower income houses being squeezed, but they are predominantly renters, not people who are buying. Hence why the mortgage rate rises, although feeling a little bit uncomfortable, and meaning that we have many deals that people are trying to get through quickly, or maybe saying if this offer expires, I might not be able to buy at quite the same level. It's not changing their desire to buy a property at all. So I found that quite an interesting graph from Zoopla's research, and something that we've certainly felt has been happening. On the issue of mortgages, obviously first-time buyers, we talk often about how tricky it can be. Indeed, they need an extra £12,500 now because of the mortgage rate rises to be able to get onto the property ladder. That's because many banks have a certain loan-to-value ratio, and they need an extra deposit to compensate for the rising rates that we're seeing. So that is tough for them, there's no doubt about it, to save that money. But interestingly, something that Boris Johnson was very keen to do was to introduce a 50-year mortgage. And that is something that looks like it's going to be a lender coming to the market very soon, doing just that. It will possibly have a 30-year fixed term, and then the right to extend that to the final 20 years. It's scary, isn't it? The thought of buying a property at, say, 25 and thinking you won't pay it off till you're 75, but it's in an attempt to get those mortgage payments down. So yeah, really interesting to see if that does happen and what people will think about it. And of course, we've been talking there about those lower income groups who often are in social housing, and the right to buy scheme. Well, it was introduced, wasn't it, by Margaret Thatcher. She wanted everyone to embrace the joys of home ownership. And you might therefore think there's less right to buy going on now, but it's still a big thing. Between 2013 and now, there have been £3.4 billion worth of property that has been sold by local councils to the tenants. And that's being felt to have a real issue, actually. So what all that's doing is really reducing the amount of social housing stock that there is available. And so local councils, especially in those expensive areas in London, are finding they've shot themselves in the foot. They've now got to rent at high private landlord rates to house those most in need. The areas that have seen the biggest growth in that right to buy is Dagenham, Greenwich, Southwark. So those expensive areas that sit around London. Yeah, a call really for councils to improve their stock again, invest in new builds, and improve the overall quantity and quality of what they can offer those people who really need help with housing. But yeah, I was intrigued to see there's still so much of that going on. Well, wasn't it fabulous, local and live this week? I want to say a big thank you to Sarah Jane, who supports all the wonderful things that Tunbridge Wells Together does and put on the Great Arts and Crafts Week, which was Obviously, then we had the live and local at the end of it. I was down at Calverley Park on a couple of occasions, and it was really, really well supported. So thank you so much to everyone does to support this fabulous town that we have. You can see here a picture of my daughter who enjoyed a craft modelling session at the Amelia. So thank you to Whirligig Toys for hosting that. She came back with an amazing rabbit mask. Well done. Yeah, we'll obviously all now getting back into the back to school vibe of things this week. The schools will be going back this week. We expect to see an upturn in property inquiries as people go back to school and families are freed up to have more time. And if you're thinking that you would like to look at a property and consider a move in this lovely busy autumn market that we're about to head into, how about this lovely property that I have just launched? It's a wonderful conversion of a former schoolhouse, St Paul's Schoolhouse, just on the western side of Tunbridge Wells, between Tunbridge Wells and Rust Hall. Lovely secluded position, very green outlook to the back, and really embraces open plan living. It's the end of, it's an attached property, it's the end of the drive, lots of parking, lovely private garden on a guide of 1.3 million. If you'd like to see more on that, then do give us a call. Hope you have a great week. If you have kids going back to school, I hope that goes well. I look forward to seeing you next week. Bye-bye.